I really thought she was the one. I truly did. After everything, all the years alone, I let my guard down. I opened my heart, something I hadn't done in decades, and for a while, it was everything I dreamed of. But dreams, I learned, can turn into nightmares without you even realizing it. I lost so much, not just money, but a piece of myself. The sun felt good on my face, warm and heavy. I was sitting by the pool at my hotel in Phuket, just watching the palm trees sway in the gentle breeze. The air smelled of something sweet, like jasmine, mixed with a hint of salt from the ocean. I remember taking a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs, and for the first time in what felt like forever, my chest didn't feel tight. It was a good feeling, a really good feeling. I had just gotten off the phone with my daughter. We talked about her kids, how they were growing so fast, and she even asked if I was enjoying my big adventure. I told her I was, and for once, I wasn't just saying it to make her feel better. I actually was enjoying it. My divorce had hit me harder than I let on, even to myself. 25 years gone, just like that, and after that, a few years of just floating, feeling invisible, honestly. I'd spent so much time taking care of everyone else, and then suddenly there was just me, alone. My friends tried to get me out, but it felt like walking through water, heavy. Every step took effort. Coming to Thailand, to a place so far from everything I knew, was my attempt to shake things up, to find something new. I wasn't looking for anything specific, not really, just a change of scenery, a place where I could breathe without the weight of all those memories. But sitting there, by that clear blue water, watching the sun sparkle on the surface, I felt a new kind of openness inside me. It was like a little crack had formed in the wall I'd built around my heart. A tiny sliver of light was getting in. I really believed in that moment that a new chapter was starting. I was ready for it. I was ready to be happy again. The next day, I decided to wander off the resort. I wanted to see the real Phuket, not just the tourist spots. I ended up in this huge outdoor market, a maze of stalls selling everything you could imagine: spices, fresh fruit, strange-looking fish, and mountains of colorful fabrics. The air was thick with the smell of street food and exotic flowers, and the sounds of haggling and laughter filled the air. It was a riot of sights and sounds, unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I was just drifting through, taking it all in, when I saw her. She was sitting behind a stall piled high with beautiful silk scarves, her fingers gracefully folding a bright blue one. Even in the chaos of the market, she seemed to glow. Her hair was pulled back, showing off a delicate face, and her smile, that smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. It reached her eyes, making them sparkle with a genuine warmth that pulled me in. I found myself walking towards her stall, almost without thinking. I pretended to look at a scarf, but really, I was just trying to catch her eye. When she finally looked up, her smile widened. "Hello," she said, her English soft but clear. "Can I help?" "Just looking," I mumbled, feeling a little flustered, like a teenager. "These are beautiful." We started talking, slowly at first. I asked her about the scarves, where they came from. She told me about her family who made them in a small village. Then, somehow, we just kept talking. I found myself telling her about my life back in California, about my divorce, and how empty I'd felt for so long. I told her I'd come to Thailand to find some peace, to figure out what was next for me. It felt surprisingly easy to open up to her, like I'd known her for years. She listened with such an open expression, nodding sometimes, her eyes never leaving mine. Then she told me about her own life, her family in the countryside, how hard they worked, and her dreams of having a small shop of her own one day. She spoke with a quiet determination that I admired. We sat there for what felt like hours, surrounded by the noise of the market, but it was like we were in our own little bubble. When I finally left, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. My heart felt lighter than it had in a long, long time. It wasn't just the warmth of the Thai evening. It was her. I hadn't been looking for anything, but it felt like I had stumbled upon something truly special. A connection. A real connection. It felt like destiny, like this was why I had come all this way. She made me feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Like I mattered, like I was young again. I knew, without a doubt, that I wanted to see her again. Our days quickly settled into a wonderful rhythm. Every morning, I'd walk from my hotel, sometimes taking a local taxi, to meet Leela. We'd spend hours together, exploring. She'd show me places only locals knew, a tiny noodle shop tucked away down an alley, a quiet beach where the water was impossibly clear, a hidden temple carved into the side of a hill. It wasn't just sightseeing. It was like she was opening up her world to me and I was soaking it all in. She had this way of looking at me like I was the most interesting person she'd ever met, and it made me feel 10 feet tall. She started cooking for me sometimes, simple but delicious Thai dishes, right there at her small apartment. The smells of garlic, chili, and lemongrass would fill the air, and we'd eat together, just the two of us, talking about everything and nothing. I felt more at home with her than I had in years, maybe ever. I even started thinking about extending my stay, making this more permanent. The thought of going back to my quiet life in California, alone, felt impossible now that I had her. But little things started to pop up, small at first, like tiny cracks in a perfect picture. Sometimes she'd be late to meet me, not by much, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. She'd always have an apology, a sweet smile, and an excuse about traffic or her family. I always believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was so genuine. Then her phone started ringing more often. She'd always step away to answer, turning her back to me, talking in hushed tones I couldn't understand. When she came back, she'd always say it was just her sister or her mother asking about something unimportant. I tried not to think about it too much. Everyone has family matters, right? The financial requests also began, slowly at first. Her brother needed money for a new fishing net. Her mother needed medicine for a cough. A cousin needed help with school fees. Each time, she'd look at me with those big, earnest eyes, and I'd feel this overwhelming need to help her. I had saved up a good amount for my retirement, and I told myself, this is what partners do. They help each other. I was happy to give it. I wanted to be her rock, her support. I wanted to show her I was serious about our future. I truly believed she needed me, and I needed to believe she was truly there for me. I pushed away any little flicker of doubt. I was in love, and in my mind, love meant trust, no questions asked. I remember that night so clearly, like it was yesterday. We were at a little outdoor restaurant, one of our favorites, tucked away from the main road. The air was warm and a few strings of lights glowed above us. I was telling Leela about a funny thing my grandson had done, and she was laughing, her hand resting lightly on my arm. Then her phone buzzed. She picked it up and her smile just vanished. Her face went pale, like someone had sucked all the color out of it. Her eyes, usually so bright, looked wide and scared. She mumbled something in Thai, then quickly ended the call. She didn't look at me for a long moment, just stared down at her lap. "Leela, what is it? What's wrong?" I asked, my voice suddenly tight with worry. She finally looked up, but her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. "Nothing," she said, her voice small. "Just my family problem." She said it quickly, too quickly. She started picking at a loose thread on the tablecloth, avoiding my gaze. I tried to press her, gently, asking if I could help. She just shook her head, kept saying, "No, no, it's fine." But her whole body language screamed that it wasn't. The easy warmth that had been between us just moments before evaporated, replaced by a strange, cold distance. The uneasiness lingered, a tiny knot in my stomach. Then, a few days later, it got worse. She didn't show up for our usual morning meeting. I called her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I called again and again for hours. My heart started pounding in my chest. Where was she? Was she okay? All sorts of terrible thoughts raced through my mind. I walked around town, checking our usual spots, feeling a growing panic. She finally called me that evening, her voice sounding tired. "I'm so sorry, my love," she said. "My aunt, she was very sick. I had to go to her village. It's very far, no phone signal there." She sounded convincing, almost, but there was something in her tone, a slight flatness, that bothered me. A cold dread, like an unwelcome guest, settled deep in my stomach. The trust I had so easily given her, the picture of our perfect life, it started to crack. I wanted to believe her, desperately, but a tiny voice in the back of my head whispered that something wasn't right. The illusion, the beautiful dream I was living, it felt like it was starting to break. The cracks in my trust grew wider, but I was still clinging to hope. I really was. I wanted to believe Leela, to believe in us. She seemed to sense my lingering doubt because she started talking about our future more, making plans. My love, she said one evening, I want us to be together always. I want to stay here with you, truly stay. She spoke about getting a long-stay visa, making our life together permanent. My heart leaped. This was it, I thought. This was proof. She explained that getting this kind of visa was expensive. She needed a large sum of money, not just for the application fees, but for a required bank deposit to show she wouldn't be a burden. It's for our future, my darling, she'd say, her eyes earnest, so we can be together, truly together. I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. This was a big step, a huge amount of money, but the thought of finally having a real, stable future with her overshadowed any hesitation. I told myself it was an investment in our happiness. We went to the bank together. I watched her talk to the clerk, saw her sign papers, and then, with a deep breath, I authorized the transfer. The numbers on the screen seemed huge, almost unreal, but the smile Leela gave me afterwards, full of promise, made me push all my worries aside. A few days later, I decided to take a quiet walk by myself, just to clear my head and think about all the changes ahead. I ended up at the small, secluded beach she had shown me early on, the one we called our secret spot. The sun was setting, casting long shadows, and the waves were gently lapping at the shore. It was supposed to be peaceful. Then I saw them. Right there, on our beach, holding hands, laughing, was Leela. And next to her was a man. Not a Thai man, a Western man, younger than me, maybe in his early 40s. He had his arm around her, and she was leaning into him, her head resting on his shoulder, just like she did with me. My stomach dropped. It was like someone had punched all the air out of my lungs. My vision blurred for a sec. I stood there, hidden by some palm trees, watching them. They looked so comfortable together, so intimate. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. This couldn't be real. My forever woman? With someone else? Right here? The laughter bubbling up from her, the way she looked at him. It was the same way she looked at me. No, it was the same way she pretended to look at me. The visa money, the family problems, the hushed phone calls, it all crashed down on me at once. Every little inconsistency, every red flag I had ignored, suddenly made perfect, horrifying sense. I felt foolish, utterly betrayed, and a deep, sickening wave of nausea washed over me. I wasn't just a tourist, I was a mark, and my forever woman was just a lie. After seeing her on the beach with him, I didn't walk back to my hotel. I just stumbled. My legs felt like jelly, and my head was pounding. When I finally got back to my room, I didn't bother to turn on the lights. I just collapsed onto the bed, staring up at the dark ceiling. My mind was a whirlwind of images. Leela's laughing face, the way she leaned into him, the huge numbers on the bank transfer screen. It was all a lie. All of it. I stayed in that room for days. The blinds were drawn, keeping the bright Phuket sun out, and the only light was the weak glow from my phone screen when I checked for messages that never came. I couldn't eat. The thought of food made my stomach churn. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, smiling, then laughing with him. The shame was a suffocating blanket. It pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. I felt like the biggest fool on earth, an old man, desperate for love, who had fallen for the oldest trick in the book. All those years I'd spent building my life, saving my money, trying to be smart, and then I came here, to a foreign country, and threw it all away for a fantasy. I remembered the quiet warnings from other expats I'd met in bars. The subtle shakes of their heads when I talked about how amazing Leela was. I had dismissed them, of course. I thought they were just cynical. Now I knew they were just trying to tell me the truth. I had ignored them all because I wanted so badly to believe in my own happy ending. I thought about my daughter, the pride in her voice when she talked about my adventure. How could I ever tell her about this? How could I explain that I'd been so stupid, so blind? The thought of her knowing, of her seeing the fool I had become, was almost as painful as the betrayal itself. My phone, which had once buzzed with Leela's sweet messages, was now silent. The silence was deafening. It echoed the emptiness inside me. I had come to Thailand looking for peace, for a fresh start, and instead I had found isolation, humiliation, and a crushing sense of loss. It wasn't just the money I'd lost, it was my dignity, my self-respect, and the last shred of hope I had for finding real companionship. I felt completely alone, adrift in a foreign land with nothing but my shame for company. The days blurred into weeks. I was a ghost in my own life, moving through the motions. But eventually, a tiny spark, not of hope, but of cold resolve, flickered inside me. I couldn't just stay in that room, drowning in my own misery. I needed some kind of closure, however painful. I needed to face her, not for answers, because I already knew the truth, but to seal the door on this nightmare. I found her number in my phone, still saved under "My Love." It felt like a sick joke now. My hand trembled as I dialed. It rang for a long time, and I almost hung up, but then she answered. Her voice was flat, devoid of any warmth. "Hello," she said, like I was a stranger. My heart ached, but I pushed the feeling down. "Leela," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "It's me. We need to talk." There was a long silence on her end. I could almost hear her thinking, weighing her options. Finally, she said, "Okay, meet me at the coffee shop near the pier, tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Her tone was completely neutral, like she was discussing the weather. No anger, no surprise, no regret, just... The next morning I arrived early. My palms were sweating and my stomach was a tight knot, but I forced myself to sit there, waiting. She walked in exactly at 10, dressed casually, her face unreadable. She didn't smile. She didn't apologize for being late. She just sat down across from me, her eyes meeting mine without flinching. It was chilling. "Why Leela?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why did you do it? All of it. The money, the visa, the other man." She just looked at me, her expression blank. "I needed the money," she said, her voice flat, almost bored. "My family needed it. You were generous." She said the word generous like it was a fact, not a compliment. There was no remorse in her eyes, no hint of the girl who had charmed me so completely. "My family has many problems. You don't understand how it is here. You are old. You are lonely. I made you happy. Is that not worth something?" She almost sounded like I was the one who owed her. I stared at her, utterly speechless. There was nothing left. No love, no anger, just a vast, cold emptiness. She didn't deny anything. She didn't try to lie. She just laid it out, cold and calculating. The mask was completely off. The beautiful dream, the promise of forever, shattered into a million pieces. There was nothing more to say. She stood up, pushing her chair back without a sound. "Goodbye," she said, her voice devoid of emotion, and then she walked out of the coffee shop, disappearing into the morning crowd. I didn't try to stop her. I didn't call after her. I just sat there watching the space where she had been. It wasn't a dramatic exit, no screaming, no tears from her, just a quiet, final silence. And with that silence, the emotional chain that had tied me to her, to the illusion, finally, mercifully, broke. I went back to my hotel room after that final meeting, and this time, the darkness didn't feel as heavy. It was still there, but something had shifted. I walked over to the bathroom, flipped on the light, and just stood there, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I really looked at the old man staring back at me. My face was lined, my hair thinner, more gray than I remembered. My eyes, usually kind, were clouded with pain, but I could also see a flicker of something else now. A weary understanding. It wasn't just her fault, I realized. No, the truth was, I had played a part in this whole mess. A big part. I had been so desperate for connection, so lonely after my divorce. That gaping hole inside me, that need to feel wanted and young again. It had made me blind. I had ignored every single red flag, twisted every strange phone call, every vanished day into something innocent. I had told myself lies, convincing myself that her need for money was just her trying to support her family, not a way to drain my bank account. I remembered how she made me feel. Alive, important, cherished, and I had craved that feeling so much I let it override my common sense. I put her on a pedestal, ignoring the whispers of doubt, the nagging voice in the back of my head. I wanted the fairy tale ending so badly that I built it in my mind, piece by piece, and then forced her to fit into it. The realization was like a punch to the gut, but also, strangely, a breath of fresh air. It was a cold, hard truth, and it hurt, but it also started to clear my head. I wasn't just a victim here, I was a participant. My own loneliness, my own need to escape myself and my past had made me vulnerable. I had handed her the tools to hurt me, simply because I so desperately wanted to believe in the illusion she offered. There were no more tears left, just this quiet, unseemly clarity. All the shame I felt for being foolish, it slowly started to turn into something else. A deep, profound sadness for what I had done to myself, for allowing my need to be needed to lead me down such a destructive path. It was a painful moment, looking at myself and finally seeing the truth, but there was no denial left. Just me, the man in the mirror, and the quiet, scarred acceptance of my own part in this story. With the heavy weight of denial finally lifted, a strange sense of calm settled over me. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was peace. I knew what I had to do. I started packing my bags, but this time, it felt different. I wasn't just putting clothes into a suitcase, I was shedding layers of a life that wasn't real. The silk shirts I'd bought to feel younger, the little trinkets Leela had admired, I left most of it behind. I didn't need them. I didn't need to hold on to anything that reminded me of the illusion. I booked my flight home, not with anger, but with a quiet resolve. There was no grand plan for revenge, no desire to confront her again. She had faded. She was just a memory now, a painful lesson, not a person I wanted to chase or punish. The anger I'd felt had turned into a quiet understanding. My story wasn't about her evil, it was about my own blind spots, my own need for love, and how easily that need could be exploited. The flight back to California felt long, but I didn't mind. I spent most of it looking out the window, watching the clouds, just thinking about the man I was when I arrived in Thailand, full of hope, and the man I was now, a little bit broken, but also, strangely, a lot wiser. I had lost a significant amount of money, a piece of my retirement. That hurt, a lot, but what I had gained was far more valuable, a hard-won understanding of myself, of trust, and of love. When I stepped off the plane, the familiar California air felt different. It was cool, crisp, and it smelled like home. No jasmine, no salt from the Andaman Sea, just home. I still felt the scars of what had happened, a phantom ache in my chest, but they were just... I knew this journey wasn't about winning or getting justice. It was about learning, and I had learned. I was older, yes, and maybe a little more cautious, but also, quietly, stronger. The experience hadn't ruined me, it had taught me. I was ready to rebuild, not a new romance, but a new life for myself. One built on honesty, self-awareness, and a deeper understanding of what true connection really means. Leela was gone from my life, just a ghost of a memory, and I was finally, truly, ready to move on.